It being 6:05, I will call to order the meeting of the Carver Redevelopment Authority for March 29th, 2022. We're going to go right into the North Carver project. In the past week or so, the Fire and Safety and Police Chief have presented to the Select Board what was called at the time the Community Benefits Agreement. I don't know if the name has changed. There was some talk of that. And I did ask the chiefs if they wouldn't mind coming here tonight and just giving a very brief overview of the project. They're working with Hillwood in anticipation of our public hearing tomorrow night. So. Sit where you like. Far be it from me to tell the chiefs where they should sit.
Somebody's got to.
Okay, obviously, I have public safety chiefs here with us tonight, and one hiding in the back corner that wants to stay there. Just kind of a brief update to the RDA. As you have watched, the Select Board did unanimously approve a CBA agreement between the town of Carver and Hillwood. As public safety chiefs, we feel this agreement puts our public safety in the best spot possible in planning for a development by Hillwood in the Green Business Park. I do want to say that we publicly want to thank the RDA for supporting us in that project. It's been a long year, to get to this point of a lot of unknowns, and I think it's very important, as we agreed in the beginning, to work together and be very transparent among, our departments. And I think that, to this point, has paid off very well. And again, all of us want to thank you for that and your support.
Thank you.
So we obviously have a long ways to go, and, this agreement that was signed, doesn't cover everything. There are a lot of unknowns that we all know about, and the unknowns are more so if Hillwood doesn't develop the project. That's where we have a lot of unknowns, certainly in the public safety arena, and we've certainly shared that with you. So, but I think we're in a pretty good spot right now, and I'd certainly ask the chiefs if they'd like to comment at all.
Thank you again for having us tonight. I would just echo Chief Weston's comments. I think we've made reasonable requests of Hillwood that they've met so that we can deal with any impact that comes from the project. And as Chief Weston thanked all of you for your help, I think that we owe Chief Weston a round of applause too, because he spearheaded this agreement and got this all together and really was responsible for moving it forward. So I feel very comfortable with the agreement. I feel that we will, as public safety agencies, be able to deal with the impact that comes from the project, whatever that might be. And I'm grateful that we're able to get that accomplished.
And as Chief West said, thank you for helping us and supporting us through this project. The mitigation agreement, as noted, definitely was beneficial to the community to help us be able to continue to provide the excellent public service that we can do within each one of our departments. As Chief Weston was very big spearheader in getting sure this was done and included us in making sure that we were taken care of as well, so that we can handle any issues that may come around by having such a development in our town. And as Chief Weston said, the unknown is our only concern right now, because that's just the unknown of what may or may not happen. We just have to wait and see. Thank you for the time.
As we said with the Select Board, these mitigation agreements, although are done, across the country for different projects, I think the agreement that we developed as a group, and I mean we as a group, is pretty much unprecedented. And sometimes there's not always a good relationship between a town, a public safety, and a developer. But I do want to, Hillwood was very good to work with and working with us on this agreement, and I think they should be credited with that. I think we developed a very, transparent, open dialogue with them, and once it was clear of our concerns, I do feel they tried to work, in the best of their ability to work with us. So, they should be commended for that. I really do feel that way. But again, thank you for the team effort, and I guess we got to see where this goes.
I mean, one of the things that struck me as we started this a year ago is how much we and you didn't know as far as taking care of something of this magnitude in this town. We don't have a building anywhere near that capacity. So as I watched the chiefs work through this, I was absolutely amazed at the way you were able to focus on finding out what you needed, and also with the idea that you have to keep the rest of the town safe and covered at the same time. If worst case scenario happens over here, you have to be prepared for any other worst case scenario in town at the same time. And I remember us discussing some of the things in the first early meetings that I just wouldn't even have thought of. And that's your profession, and you were pulling things out saying, well, what if this happens, what if that happens? And making a note as well that there could be at any given time the population of people in that one building 24/7 equal to what's in the school 9 months of the year for 8 hours. It was really an eye-opening process to watch the public safety go through these steps, and knowing what you didn't know and finding out what you needed to know and crafting what was best for the town with Hillwood. And for that, I have nothing but accolades for. Any questions from anyone else?
No, I just want to echo what Sharon said. I really didn't have much dealings with the three of you, or the four of you really, other than Chief Weston now and again on conservation. And just watching all of you go through your processes was eye-opening to me. And I just want to say that Carver is very lucky to have the people that we have running our emergency services. So thank you for all your diligence. You're reaching out to other communities to find out how they did everything, every step of the way. You did it really, really well, and Carver really needs to appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Never without words, am I? But anyway, I typically, other than these two, worked on the financial part of it to begin with. And I worked with Gary and Mac, I think his name is Mac. And then Rick LaFawn. And I found it pleasurable. Those people were very amendable. If I had a question or anything like that, it was never an issue. Very open, very open, so we thank you. And I want to thank my committee here. We're a great team, we're 5 of us. Unfortunately, we're going to be losing that man at that end. Somebody else is going to fill the bill. I'm not quite sure if he or she is here, but hopefully the person that fills the bill will be just as compatible. And we're going to miss you, Paul. But you're here till the town meeting.
You've probably got at least 5
not town meeting.
You've got like at least 5
Election.
more meetings before the election. So, anything else? Any comment?
Over the years, I've worked with all of you, and you really stepped it up a notch. Dealing with the RDA, dealing with Hillwood, and so forth, and really, you can see that they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and they're dealing with the small town of Carver. So it's like a David and Goliath, type of thing. And through the diligence and the commitment and so forth, I said, no, this is how we do it in Carver. This is what we want in Carver. And it ended up that, we went down a path, and it was the right path, and we thank you for that. And we do have such a great services group with all of you. We're very fortunate. Thank you.
That it?
I think so.
And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for anyone who's watching or is interested, the community benefits agreement will be discussed in some detail tomorrow night at the public hearing and as well as town meeting.
At 7 o'clock, right?
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
Okay, great.
Okay, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we will be hosting, or we will be holding the public hearing for the zoning amendments that are critical to the development of that, the Green Business Park. These are statutory. They have to be held anytime there's a zoning change. They have to hold public hearings where people will be invited to come in, hear the presentation, express their concerns, or just to get the proper information. We'll be doing with it in conjunction with the planning board, who is the hosting board, and the RDA will be presenting it. To that end, we'd like to go over what we're going to be presenting tomorrow so that we can be sure that we have it locked down. And Stephen Cole, the director of the, I'm going to get it, Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Has been our consultant and has been helping us through this process. And he is going to walk us through what he has prepared.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have a truncated presentation tonight, and only truncated because we're already familiar with the articles. And so to go through them as laboriously as we will tomorrow is probably just a little bit expended energy that we don't need to do tonight, but I defer to you, of course, if there's any questions from the audience.
We actually went through each article last week and voted to endorse each one.
Imagine my elation. So up on the screen, you'll see the reasons why we're here, or at least the reasons we will be at town meeting. Economic development has been happening for the last 30 years to prepare the site, and this is within the 5-yard line. So these are the 9 permissions that we're asking the town to adopt, or at least consider changes to the zoning. We know the number one issue, of course, is the height change, and then there's some other ancillary issues, all the way down to earth removal, which is intended to eliminate redundant requirements for that process. The merits of the project, we're going to spend more time on this tomorrow, of course, but the stated project and the purpose of the goals is to remediate blight, restore land to the tax rolls, create jobs. This is also going to change the ceiling and the levy limit for the town for the foreseeable future, right? This changes where with new growth, this changes to 2.5%. So despite the purposes and goals, and for 30 years in the making, the fact of the matter is looking at other towns, what other towns are doing, what other town meetings are talking about this coming spring and fall, independent of Hillwood, these heights and these types of suggestions or requests that we're seeing, they're across the map. It's happening in Plymouth, it's happening on Cape Cod, and it just so happens that Hillwood aside, Carver's in a place where they actually have a developer and investor at the table. So you can move faster than other towns. Some folks I've come to learn don't necessarily know where this is, and the fact of the matter is, given where the population densities are in town, I'm not really surprised. But for folks who are over there, you can see in the far upper left corner of the map here, that's a technical term for maps, of course, upper left, we see the project area. And then you can, of course, see the project boundaries that abut the towns of Plimpton and Middleborough. This is a significantly isolated project relative to where else activity and residents are in town. For those folks who are unfamiliar with the site, this is not war-torn Europe. This is actually 250 feet up. You can see where Park Ave is, and this is what the site looks like today. As of December, I should say. That's when we had our drones fly out there 250 feet up. And it starts out looking toward Middleborough, and then it pans north toward Plimpton. I think this gives folks a pretty good understanding of how isolated the site is and how anything that happens there at this point will likely be an improvement. Oops. For tomorrow's purposes, we will have guided slides, so we'll just tab through each of the 9 items. We'll discuss them in depth, answer any questions that folks may have. Many of the answers to these questions, or to anybody's questions really, are already comprehensively prepared on the website. We don't have a link to that, but we've done exhaustive efforts to promote that, that website. Do we have a count, Paul, on how many people have visited?
1,200.
1,200 people have visited that
Last time I
site.
looked.
Not bad.
And over 600 individuals.
Unique iterations.
Yes.
Yep. So I feel like we've done some yeoman's work in educating people to the project's efforts and the purpose. Here what we... Oops, sorry, Saber.
One of the other data points were that people were spending an average of 7 minutes on the site, which is a good number.
Considering the video's about 2 minutes, yeah, they're
Yeah.
spending 5 extra minutes.
Yeah.
What you see here is a site plan, the proposed building A, proposed plan, building B, as well as a cross-section of what the building would look like from the interior with a 40-foot clearance. And then lastly, as supplemental information, we have here a slide that shows the other design work that's going to be proposed. We have the decommissioned portion of Montello Street here. You'll see bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides of Main Street, 2 lanes in each direction, plus a left turn lane. And I'm going to pause here to say, I wish Chief Dufley was here. One of the things I learned when I was town planner was this particular intersection, just a little further down, even on the other side of McDonald's, that's where there's the most collisions in town. Mostly because of courtesy collisions. And so having these lanes with the revised traffic signals hopefully will cut down on that. Kevin clearly knows.
I go through that intersection multiple times.
Is that where
sometimes.
the little left turn or right turn to High Street?
Plymouth Street and 58.
Plymouth Street and 58, oh,
Yeah.
Plymouth Street.
Yes.
And then
Is High Street on here?
High Street is, but it's just out off the picture.
It's off the map.
Yeah, it's just...
It's off the map?
It's just...
further south. And I'm prepared to discuss some supplemental information with regard to finances if you think it's at all appropriate.
I think with this group, I think it's fine just to
Sure.
you know, it's something that we're going to have available should it need be. It's not really, it's in addition to what we're looking for in the zoning changes, but it's information that, that may be asked about.
Although I am a certified assessing officer, I'm not this town's assessor, and this project doesn't exist as a comp. So what Savory and I did was we studied the Amazon Fulfillment Center in Fall River. That's 1.3 million square feet. 60% of the project is in Fall River, 40% is in Freetown. Freetown ceded the permitting process to Fall River as a matter of redundancy and expediency. This is what it breaks down to. The total tax obligation of both towns is $657,000. But we know that the Carver facility that's proposed is 500,000 square feet bigger. So in order to do an apples to apples, Savory and I did a square foot value of the facility in Amazon, and then we calculated what the 500,000 would be based on that rate. Before we go there though, I want to show you this chart. Because in my time here, people kept telling me this place is becoming Brockton, and I balked at that. I thought it was absurd. How could we be? We're Carver. We're uniquely Carver. I didn't know they were talking about our tax rate, though. So when you look at Plymouth County, this is one of those things that absolutely does weigh on a developer's decision for where they are going to go. Carver has a tax rate that is very urban. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just simply saying this is the fact. And these are the things that developers do consider when they decide where they're going to go. Independent of that, though, Carver is the place where they want to be. And so just to put that in perspective, we came up with the gross value for the assessed value for the Fall River facility is $26.4 million. Breaking out on a square foot basis, 20.35 per square foot. That puts the Carver facility at about a projected $36.6 million, all things being equal, which equates to about $930,000 in real estate tax, carried out over 10 years, of course, without appreciation. You're looking at $9.3 million, and that does not include personal property, excise. It doesn't include the ancillary jobs. We don't have enough information yet to know the economic growth that we can project from this, but we know enough, of course, about the economic development. And at 200 acres, it's 200 acres more in Carver as a single user than what they see in Fall River. Fall River's facility is 50 acres. And that is the crux of the presentation.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
First of all, are you going to be mic'd tomorrow so we can hear you?
I'm hoping.
You hope?
If I need to project my voice, I will, though, Joanne.
Because Joanna can't hear.
Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine if the wind was still on? Thank you,
There's
Mr.
other people,
LaFontaine.
I'm sure that are in the same boat that I am, but the second thing is, could you have, maybe you already know, but I'll ask you, with the CPC money, we're 3%, we contribute tax-paying 3%, so we're the highest.
Mm.
Can you tell us what this $133 million building would come back to us with CPC monies?
Oh, I can't tell you. I don't know enough information on that, Joanna. I don't know.
Well,
Somebody asked me
if it's
that.
3% of the property tax, it'd be the 3% of the 930.
But it's a matching
And again, that's a
fund.
projection.
The state
Oh,
will
right.
match.
Yeah.
So
That
somebody
changes
asked
every
me
year.
that, I get all these weird things.
That changes every year.
Yeah, right, but I think I need to look at it. You know, I don't know. Maybe,
I'll see if I can
who's
find
the town administrator?
Not here.
That's what Tom Bott tells me when I ask him that question. So you're the town administrator?
Yes.
Maybe I could call you up and you could help me.
Give me a call.
Thank you very much.
So basically, this is the crux of our presentation tomorrow night.
That's right. It's a hearing, so a lot of it will be customer-driven, so to speak.
Right, but that will be kind of the overview that we start with in a little bit more detail. Okay, that's
Yeah, we're going to list out the merits of the
We're gonna list
project.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
the merits, and then as we take the zoning articles so that we can tie them into the merits of the project. Because the one thing that we've said all along is that the owner of this property is ready to sell it. He's going to do something with it. And this gives us quite a bit of control over what goes there. As far as like state-of-the-art versus, again, the 40-foot warehouse.
Right.
Something is going to go here, correct.
Something's
Something is going to go here, and this is the highest, best option, and no one else in the region can compete with Carver right now for what you're trying to attract.
Right.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Savory and Sharon, I can certainly follow up tomorrow. If there's anything that you think we need to add ahead of tomorrow, we can get that in there.
Okay.
Okay?
How does this, we might want to talk to how this relates to what we're hoping to do at town meeting. We're going to
Say
do
again?
a similar,
Yes, yeah, it's substantively this presentation with some more information and
Okay.
minus the financials. This is really just a report to you folks today,
Okay.
being my overlords.
Is the moderator kind of qualified how much time he's given you?
I am speaking with the moderator at 6 o'clock on Thursday night. I have a phone call scheduled with Sean on
Okay.
Thursday
good.
night.
Thank you.
So I will let you know what
Okay.
he says, but he did get back to me.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, everyone.
Before we go into,
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt. If anybody wants copies of tonight's slides, I'll have a couple of stacks down here at the end.
before we go into discussing the articles, and there might be some minor changes that we have to go through again. Last night at the North Carver Water District, they did sign a memorandum of understanding, and Kevin Tracy's come here tonight, and I'd like him just to speak briefly on it, if he doesn't mind.
I don't know.
Oh, thank you. I know one of the all-encompassing questions after traffic is water. And the North Carver Water District has also been working with Hillwood for quite some time, crafting their needs and our needs and the district's needs and melding them together.
Correct. The district has always had a wish list of sorts. Number one on that wish list would be elevated storage, and that gives the district the ability to do a lot more than what we can currently do with the pressure produced by the pumps at the treatment plant.
So when you talk about elevated storage, that's a standpipe? Or?
Yes, standpipe
Water
or
tower,
water
as I
tower.
know it.
People call it all different things.
Okay.
Elevated storage, I call it a standpipe
Okay.
because that's what I call it. Essentially, Hillwood has agreed to construct an elevated storage standpipe in exchange for, because the district can impose what we call a privilege fee for any new user, anybody who ties into the system that has a requirement for gallons per day development. In this particular case, it's 40,000 gallons. The privilege fee currently stands at something like $49.25 per gallon, which equates to approximately $1.9 million of potential assessment. And that really kind of ties in closely with the standpipe. If the district had to procure a standpipe and build it all on our own, it would cost us $2.5 million. Hillwood, because they're private developers, they can do it for somewhat less than that. But again, the math kind of works evenly for all of us. They're looking for a certain amount of development. We're looking for a certain amount of in-kind infrastructure. And we reached agreement with them last night on that. So, you know, we should be good to go. The agreement does, again, like the chiefs stated previously, should the permitting not happen, then that's it. The standpipe doesn't go in, and, you know, the district doesn't get the standpipe, and we don't get the assessment. So there's a lot of financial benefit to the district if this should happen. So again, that's, you know, if there's any other further questions, I can answer.
And the standpipe, was that partly in conjunction with what the chief needed for fire suppression?
Yes, again, and the fire suppression, again, the chief wants the standpipe, the Hillwood group wants it, because it benefits everybody, everybody within the district. You know, not just the developer, but, you know, even the residents. We can finally have full fire suppression from the hydrants on the street, which is something that we couldn't produce for people previously. We just couldn't do it.
Because we didn't have the pressure.
We didn't have that elevated storage. We didn't have that 125,000 gallons of water just sitting there waiting for something to happen.
Oh, so, excuse me, so if something happened to Shaw's, that standpipe? The
Yes.
water tower,
Yeah.
thank
Yes.
you. That, you could open that up and use it for the,
It would be available for fire suppression everywhere within the
wow,
district, all the way up to Lakenham, all the way up Plymouth Street, all the way from one end of Plymouth Street to the
plus the
next.
fact, will they have increased water pressure too, right?
Yes. Well, yes. The
So if more
pressure
people-
would be
More people
better.
wanted water,
Yes.
you could add on to it and you'd have good pressure. and so on.
Yes, we would.
Wow, okay.
It's a big benefit. Having standpipe is a big benefit to the water
Middleborough
district.
want our water?
No, Middleborough recently went through a process of, and this is another one of those things that Carver Water District has. Middleborough recently went through the new source approval, which is the permit. They get a permit from the DEP to increase their permit. So they're pretty much all set with their water requirements.
Is the business where the water comes from Middleborough, when it initially did, where the business district is that
Yes.
all serviced by Carver Water?
North Carver Water District. We have all the way to the Middleborough line.
Oh, wow,
Yep. We service everything on our side of the boundary.
good.
And one of the questions that seems to come up occasionally about water is, does Carver have enough water for our services now and to add on this development?
Yes.
Yeah.
The permit that North Carver Water District has is for 100,000 gallons per day. We currently, even on a good day, sell somewhere around 30.
30?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So we have a full 70,000 gallons per day available under our permit.
Wow.
40,000, so we can manage this development and future development. And again, one of the things that has been on the list for North Carver Water District has been new source approval. So when this development happens, if this development happens, revenue generated by this development will go towards some of the wish list items that the district has had. We want to get out from underneath needing the subsidy from the town. The town does currently subsidize the North Carver Water District. We would like to make that stop, and we would like to make that stop forever. New source approval, if we could establish more wells, increase our permit, we could even sell even more water. Debt service, where the district currently has about $6.5 million in debt that we're going to need to pay out for the next 29 or 30 years or so, somewhere in that area. Revenue that comes in from this development can be squirreled away and used for future debt service, and that's our hope. We need to do upgrades to the treatment plant. The treatment plant is now 10 years old. The membranes that we use to filter the water have a typical 10-year lifespan. Our water operator is awesome at keeping them clean, but at some point in time, we're going to need to replace those membranes. And I think the last estimate that we had was somewhere around $40,000. So there's some big-ticket items that we would like to do that are going to be helped by revenue generated by this development, should it happen, in addition to the Standpipe. A lot of benefits to the North Carver Water District from this.
I know one of our zoning proposals concerns the water tower.
Yes.
Yeah,
Allowing the height.
allowing an increase in height to a maximum of 175 feet, was it?
I don't know, I don't think the number's in the,
I think we put it
in
Yeah, we
that
put it
article
was
anymore.
I think it wasn't.
I don't know if it's
The
still-
average height of a standpipe is 165 feet.
Right, I think that's what Hillwood had said.
The height of the standpipe, there are two critical components with the height of a standpipe. One is that it needs to be able to communicate directly with the treatment plant, which generally means line of sight. That shouldn't be too much of a problem because the standpipe and the treatment plant aren't really that far apart. They're only about 2,500 to 3,000 feet apart. So that shouldn't be too difficult. The other is providing necessary gravitational pressure to the highest point within the district. The highest point within the district is likely to be somewhere in the Lakenham Drive area because there's
Because of the hill.
because that's the two highest points in town are the South Carver landfill and the North Carver landfill.
Oh, jeez. Aren't we lucky?
Well, no, and Lakenham is adjacent to the North Carver landfill.
Yeah.
So it's likely to be the highest point within the district. And again, we need to kind of think about future growth.
Yeah.
So the height of the standpipe is going to need to be vetted by an engineer. I'm not, I know this stuff, but I'm not nearly smart enough to tell you that the standpipe needs to be a specific height. So that'll need to be vetted by engineers.
A couple of things, just to be clear, that Hillwood is going to build the tower and turn ownership over to the town.
Correct.
So it becomes a municipal facility.
It will become the property of the North Carver Water District. It
Okay.
will become part of our system.
Great. And I think I heard at one point during many conversations about this tower that of the 125,000 gallons, there is going to be a cutoff point should there be an emergency, after which they will not take water from that tower anymore and will take it from their other sources around.
Correct. Yep.
That way, guaranteeing that the residents and the businesses in Carver will still maintain their water. Is that correct?
A fire should not disrupt service to residential and business properties. Again, I'm going to leave that to Chief Weston. He is the consummate professional when it comes to public safety. He's the guy that I would trust to tell me what that number is.
Yeah, okay. But I'm correct in hearing that? So,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
There has to be some point where, and in all likelihood, this is water that will never be used for the purposes of fire protection. I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But in all likelihood, will likely never be used for that purpose.
But in
And
thinking, it has to be.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
but-
crossed.
But it's now available when we didn't have it before.
Absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. A big step up from what we have available to us today.
Right. Any questions for him?
Yeah, I have one question. So I heard you say that it sounded to me like it was a trade-off, right? Like Hillwood builds the standpipe because they don't want to pay as much of a fee. So is this
Correct.
like an either-or, or are they just getting out of, excuse me if I make it up, instead of $40 per, they were agreeing to drop it to $25? How does that work out?
We are required to charge, it's written right into the rules and regulations that the district follows. We are required, shall issue a privilege fee for, multiplied by, X amount of dollars. It's a kind of an even trade for us. If it would cost us $2.5 million to build this standpipe, and we can get Hillwood to do it, it's better for us, because then we don't need to go through the procurement.
I think that would throw the FinCom into having to figure out how to pay for a $2.5 million standpipe.
They wouldn't have to. It would be the district's responsibility to pay for that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
This is, North Carver Water
That's
District
right.
is an
That's right, yes,
enterprise
sometimes.
fund, and we are responsible for money that comes in, money that goes out. We're responsible for all of that.
Well, I want to thank you and the North Carver Water
Yeah.
District members for everything that you had done with Hillwood in your meetings, and I know you met with their staff and their engineers, and the people from Bowler, I think, were working
Yes.
with you.
Yep.
And again, this is kind of the behind the scenes, unless you were watching their meetings, that the hours that were put in by, another.
This is where the sausage gets
Yeah,
made.
exactly. But this was just another series of meetings and people having to look at situations that we had not yet imagined a year ago, and figuring it out and figuring out how to protect the current consumers and expansion and take care of them as well. So again, I thank you.
And again, made possible by a vote by town meeting in 2007 or 8, somewhere way back then, to establish the district and
Yeah.
build the water system. If the water system didn't exist, Hillwood wouldn't be here today.
Exactly.
Okay,
How many
so
acres is your How many acres does that consist of? The coal property
the
up
coal
there?
property is somewhere around 281 acres, I believe.
How much do you take? It's divided in 3 sections, isn't it?
It's divided into 2 parcels. One is the conservation side and one is the public water side.
Yeah.
The district really only controls about a half acre or an acre or so.
Right.
Yeah, the rest of it is under control of the Conservation
Do
Commission.
do the solar panels that you see on the road, that helps we got to talk about that, that's important.
That's where the treatment plant gets its electricity from.
Right, exactly.
So we,
Yeah,
that was something that we did way back when as well.
way back when it started,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was, there was a lot of foresight by the people who were players back then about building water and having developers come. I know Stephen said something about we've been trying to do this for 30 years, but I can remember the town of Carver has been trying to do something meaningful with these parcels for probably closer to 50 years.
How many?
50.
50?
Yeah.
I've been here 50 today. April will be 50.
Okay.
Hallelujah, you're absolutely correct. That was on my mind as
Yeah.
she was talking about these, going, oh my.
The town of Carver's been trying to
gotta go
do
to Moscow to buy
something
food.
meaningful with these parcels for that amount of time. And, we're finally getting there.
Yeah.
Well, we were lucky. We had some good people. Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know, I see Mr. Bott back there, and I think you had said that there might be some tweaking with the articles.
If I may.
Yes, please do. I need an know what we're presenting tomorrow night?
These are my draft slides, just showing potential changes to the language.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good, thank you so much.
And now you saw a copy of these earlier today.
Yes, I did.
The drafts at 11, whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are all of them being changed or just the one?
I see, I like to have the date in the corner because
Yeah.
that tells me where I can go in the pile.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Tom Bottom, the interim town planner here, and I have been working with town council on the zoning articles for town meeting. And, you know, process and transparency is hard, but you have to do those things. So when we initially advertised the articles, the draft articles we had, those are the articles of record, and the only place to change them is on the hearing.
Okay.
Now, you can change them again on the floor of town meeting, but we do not recommend editing and amending bylaws on the floor of town meeting. It is a mess. So with the articles that were originally presented, put together, we forwarded them to town council, and town council sent back a couple of comments prior, and I went through and looked at some of the things that she had pointed out. And so the draft slides that I have before you are those things where the language is proposed to change from what was originally advertised. So the first one, Article 10, her concern at that point was, and I'm going to read this, don't these things house mechanical elements? Is there something, is there some sort of discrepancy between rooftop mechanicals as well as those buildings? And should it be clarified to note that this penthouse language is not habitable space? Well, our current bylaw references a penthouse on the top of a building, and the implication that comes with penthouses is not a nice place to be. Except in the zoning bylaw, on top of a commercial building, it's more like a mechanical room.
Okay.
So the suggestion at that point, looking at what that language might be, was to change that language for penthouse to machine room. There's also mechanical equipment rooms, but the term machine room is what people tend to invoke with that box, that room on the top of a building. It may have an elevator in it, may have electrical equipment, it may have something in it that's just not HVAC or something sitting on the roof. So a very simple change from a penthouse to machine room sort of clarifies that. And then there was this question about the overall height of the building in Section 10, where she pointed out the language as it currently exists is that that finished grade to the highest point of the building, provided that steeples, cupolas, stage lofts, now machine houses, and other appurtenances above the roof line shall not be considered an additional story, or considered in determining the height of a building or other improvements. And then, period, it goes on to say, rooftop mechanicals and rooftop solars will be included in the overall height. So she was concerned about a conflict. What is a solar panel, is these mechanical rooftops going to be in the height or not in the height? So the language that we talked about today was just to put an however in front of that last sentence.
Okay.
So it now says the machine room is not considered a story and is not considered in determining the height of a building. However, rooftop mechanicals and rooftop solars will be included in determining that overall height of the building. So if the overall height of the building is 60 feet and there's a 5-foot tall mechanical room on there, the height of the building is 60 feet. That machine room is not calculated in the height. But if the height is 65 feet and you have an HVAC unit or solar on the roof, that maximum height of the solar on top of that roof is going to be an additional 5 feet, capping you at 65 feet. So that's what we're looking at there in clarifying, getting rid of that potential conflicting language. So that's what's been proposed, and that's what the planning board will be sort of having to vote on to approve those things. And if there's something in that gives you pause for that now, let's talk about it and make sure we clean that up. prior to the hearing, so I can chat again with town council about that and make sure we're all on the same page with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. A couple of things. I would say that a machine room and a rooftop mechanical would be the same thing. Hillwood has made it clear that they expect nothing at all to be above the 65 feet, including any machine room, any rooftop mechanicals. So they are seeing those things as being identical. There is no exception for something higher than that, other than perhaps an antenna that, would need to be in communication with police or fire. All along, they have said that anything, solar panels, HVAC, any kind of machine room that needs to go on the roof would be below the 65-foot height. So I think that this might be a little bit more confusing. If you were going to change something, maybe you would say, where you've changed the however, you would say, however, rooftop mechanicals, machine rooms, and rooftop solar will be included in determining the overall height. And the penthouses are existing already in the zoning bylaw, correct?
Correct.
And that's at the 40-foot height.
That is the footnote for number 11, footnote number 11.
All right, is the footnote, I don't have the zoning in front of me, is the footnote related to the Green Business Park only, or is it townwide?
It is related to townwide.
Okay, so what this, by eliminating penthouses, that eliminates penthouses anywhere else in town?
Yep. And they...
Okay, I mean, I don't know how many we have, frankly.
Or will have.
But I think that machine room, in this case, machine room and rooftop mechanicals are the same thing.
However, rooftop mechanicals, machine rooms, solar will be included in determining the overall height.
Yes, because Hillwood has made it clear all along that they expect nothing at all to be higher than 65 feet, and they don't expect even to be anything there. Maybe 62 is what they're talking about at the peak of the roof.
Okay.
All right?
Easy enough. By acclamation of the board, I'm going to say that's where we're going?
Yes.
Okay. So when I inserted this chart...
So 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Tom. Savory is penthouses, they cross that out. You want that back in?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, penthouses needs to go. It's confusing.
Needs to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, because it doesn't
yeah.
affect our project.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, fine.
It's just, it's antique language. It's very
Okay.
confusing.
Right, but
so-
machine room
Machine room.
won't be
Yep.
included there.
Yeah.
It'll be included in the second sentence.
Is it room or rooms?
Machine rooms.
Rooms.
With an S?
Yeah.
Yeah,
plural.
because we got rooftop mechanicals, machine rooms.
Okay, and rooftop.
It's a big
so-
building. There could be.
There could be. Well, it's two buildings.
So in Article 10, when we added, when I plugged this chart in, footnote number 12 didn't make it into the chart. So I just added footnote number 12 into the chart. And the definition of footnote 12 has been amended for town meeting as well. The previous language was municipal facilities may be increased to 40 feet in height provided they meet all public safety standards. The zoning that was proposed to be amended for this, which is exactly what it was, that hasn't changed, except that a water tower owned or operated by the North Carver Water District shall be considered a municipal facility and shall not be subject to height limitations within the GBP district provided they meet all public safety standards. We had earlier talked about inserting a language about 175 feet.
I see that on the top, right up
Yeah.
top.
Yeah. So we want to plug that language in so it's not open-ended. We had talked about, rather than have something that is essentially open-ended, that we would note that the average height is 165 feet. A water tank won't go over 175 feet, so there's some certainty with that. And just a little room in there for the adjustments in the field as they have to build this out.
So, Tom, I have one question on that chart that I see, 11 showing a footnote. Underneath 11, there's going to be a 12?
Yes, there's 12 footnotes in them.
Okay.
So in definition of 11 in structures, we actually had language that we took out for a non-residential use that probably shouldn't have been taken out. So the language was that A building is an accessory where a principal building exists in the same lot. No accessory building or structure may be higher than 20 feet or 10 feet less than the height of the principal building or structure on a lot, whichever is greater, except that a structure or structures such as a water tank should be used for portable water supply or fire protection purposes for a non-residential use. Well, we struck for a non-residential use, so we're just plugging it back in, because that was struck in by error. So in my very irritating slide there, where it's stricken as red and then put back in, but I just wanted people to be able to follow along that it came out, but we're putting it back
I
in.
think that's the one I was complaining about the last meeting.
It was.
Yep.
Can we just step back for one quick second
Yes.
to the one before that, where you had the table?
Yes.
It does say that accepted that a water tower owned or operated by the North Carver Water District, the ownership of that is going to be transferred after the completion of the water tower. Is there any issue with that it was going to be built to that height by a private developer, then turned over?
I don't believe so, but
Okay.
we'll just query counsel on that as well.
Okay. I don't know the timeline of when they're turning it over, but I would assume it's when it's done.
Yep. We don't want it before it's done.
No, we don't.
We want
Certified.
it done, painted, and dry ground underneath of it.
Yeah.
Those would be my points
Right.
if somebody asked me about it. So one of the other questions that council had asked about, and this is more of a slide than a change in the bylaw, where he talked about rezoning map 20 lot 14 from highway commercial to green industrial park. And sometimes people look at rezoning one piece of property and they say, well, isn't that spot zoning when you're rezoning one piece of property? And in essence, essentially spot zoning is rezoning one piece of property to benefit an individual property owner. That's the easiest language for it. This is not that. Rezoning a piece of property that is contiguous with the initial industrial park, if identified as a goal of a policy of the town, is exactly not spot zoning. So I went into the master plan and I pulled out, as you can see, parts from the master plan, the local land use goal 3.1. Land use policy should protect Carver's small town and rural character by encouraging growth in preferred locations. One of the strategies of that goal, strategy 3.1.1, is future large-scale commercial growth should take place in North Carver. And then as an economic development goal in the master plan as well, to focus that traditional economic development to the Green Business Park District and the Spring Street Innovation District in North Carver. So from my perspective, the master plan basically says we should move stuff up here and we should put as much stuff up there as we can so the rest of the place looks like it does down here.
Excuse me, but that's an oversight. That should have been included from the get-go, but it was an oversight by our then town planner.
There are a lot of town planners with a lot of issues out there. You're talking to one. So we'll do our best to be respectful of those who've departed and just try to dress up the things that we can.
Okay,
We're still
but it
here.
it was an oversight.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts to this day job, because it sometimes even goes at night.
Okay.
And actually, the developer only recently bought that parcel.
Right, because it was, because it was
Last fall or so.
yeah.
So the other parts of the slide presentation I have for you is Article 19. Those are changes to the sign bylaw. And I included them in there because the very last slide is part of the sign bylaw that's being deleted, subsection 3570. Right now, signs have to be a certain size, signs have to be illuminated a certain way, and if you want a bigger sign or a brighter sign, under section 3570, you would go to the planning board for a special permit. So I've had this conversation with the building commissioner, who was the person who are making these amendments to the sign bylaw. And essentially the goal of this is that the sign bylaw, signs typically go to the building commissioner anyhow, and they really don't have any business being in front of the planning board, because planning boards deal with height, bulk, setback, and not signs.
Right.
So the building commissioner will be issuing signs, not the planning board. So in this instance where a sign is larger or brighter than would be typically under the standards, he had this stricken from the bylaw. I said, well, does that mean that, we're not going to have signs bigger than what are proposed? Or is there another permitting authority you're considering for that? He said, no, I'm considering striking it entirely. And if someone wants a sign bigger than that, they'll have to have their sign permit denied. Then they'll have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to ask for a variance for a sign. Well, the two other options are that the planning board could remain the special permit granting authority for a sign larger than such, or it could go to the ZBA as a general rule, but he said, and he discussed this with the planning board, that they're striking these things from the bylaw, this particular section. We're talking about this on the first night of the hearings, so if there's questions that come up about that, we have the second night of the hearings to talk about any sort of tweaking of that sort of section 3570. Because the folks at Hillwood had asked, well, what about this particular section? Well, what if we want a bigger sign? I said, well, then you'd have to apply for one. Frankly, there's a lot of folks who don't think that signs are as valuable as they once were. With the GPS and things like that, if you're a drive-by destination like south of the border, you want one of those signs. You never saw such a wiener. You want those like 400 miles before you get there. But if you're,
I've seen that many times.
I don't take 95 anymore because I know all the signs by now. I take 81 when I go south, and I recommend it to everybody. It's a much nicer drive. But the fact that you're going to a set destination, you're not oh, let's go by the distribution center. To what extent do you need a bigger, brighter, finer sign than what you might have? So to that extent, and the concerns people have about sign pollution and things like that, it's up to the town to decide how they want to deal with that. But under the current bylaw, the signs are the signs size they are, and if someone wants a larger sign, they have to go ask for one through the Zoning Board of Appeals as envisioned here, rather than going to the Planning Board for a special permit. And tomorrow night when we talk about it, if the Planning Board goes, no, we want to keep doing that, I don't know why, or send it to the ZBA, or do what the building commissioner had suggested.
I mean, I've been on the zoning board for 30 years, and for a long time, we did the signage, anything over that. I'm not really sure if we still do. We haven't had a sign application in a long time, but many years ago, 15, 18 years ago, the planning board and the zoning board basically divided those kind of special permits, and the planning board took the commercial permits, so that they felt it was part of their site plan review of, like Shaw's, rather than have Shaw's come, in the middle of their site plan review, have to come over to zoning to get a sign permit for if they wanted something bigger. So that it was handled for commercial over at the planning board. Like I say, we've handled some very small signage for home businesses.
Yep.
But they're coming to us for home businesses anyway, and they're doing conforming signs.
Yeah. So the bylaw says within the HC, BGV, GDB, IC, IA, IB, and AP zoning districts, which aren't residential zoning districts. So that's what's envisioned there. So those are the things that I just wanted to point out to you that are sort of morphed a bit from what we originally had proposed.
Okay.
Because after you advertise them, that's what they are until you have a hearing and people vote to change them.
And when do they go to advertising?
They've been advertised for months.
They've been advertised
Yeah.
for the public hearing.
Correct.
So is this what we're going to be reviewing tomorrow night? The public hearing?
These changes.
These changes,
correct.
okay.
And so what I want to do is make sure that Stephen has a copy of the slides, so things are sort of integrated with the presentation.
Okay.
And if Stephen wants to talk about the merits in the pretty slides, I can get up and talk about the black and white slides. There's actually some blue and red in there just to make it patriotic. We just don't want to have too many, we just want to make sure that we've got a flow for what's being discussed. So my gig is making sure the zoning is proper and it passes muster with the Attorney General.
Okay.
So when it gets to the end of the day, someone looks at it and goes, all that stuff is fine.
Is the, oh, go ahead.
All right. Talking about these signs, all this is going to be special permit. It's my understanding that within the special permit, these various departments, including the signing thing, would have been discussed and would have been, okayed or whatever. Would the building commissioner not be part within that perspective to get it all done?
So when you come in for a special permit to allow the use, it's typically accompanied with a site plan review. And a site plan review is where the parts are at, where the parking's at, where things are at. So on a special permit, on a site plan review, it will have a part on the plan that says there's a sign here, and it'll have the dimensions for the sign.
Okay.
But as far as approving the actual permit for a sign, that goes to the building commissioner. So when somebody brings in a site plan, they'll have the plan that shows where the drainage, the parking, and all that stuff is. They'll show the locations of the signs and the dimensions of them. But as far as actual issuing a permit for a sign, that goes to the building commissioner. I know it sounds a little...
That's hokey.
Well, there are rules and there are lanes. To bring every sign that someone does to the planning board just take...
Exactly.
So that's why they go to the building commissioner, because the building commissioner's got zoning that says, here's what size a sign is, here's the location of a sign. So you get to regulate size and location. You can't regulate content.
Right.
That's the First Amendment gig. So, and it's pretty straightforward. So somebody comes into the building commissioner and goes, I want to put this sign in this location, it's this size in this spot. And he goes, you got a site plan approved for that spot? Yep. Here's your permit for this sign.
So as long as it's conforming within our signage sites and
Correct.
size. And if it's not, it's going to go to the ZBA or going to go to planning board?
The process would be that they'd say, I want a sign that's bigger than, I'm going to make up a number, 16 square feet. It's not 16 square feet. I want a sign bigger than 16 square feet, and the building commissioner will say no. And so they have to go to the zoning board of appeals to get a sign bigger than 16 square feet.
All right, so there will be a built-in mechanism for appeal.
Well, obviously, because if the building commissioner denies something,
Yeah, okay.
it lands
Okay.
on my other desk.
Correct.
Okay.
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 All right, so that's what I've got. Happy to take any other questions.
And I think that's...
What is this compared to that? It was sticking in here.
Oh, I just, the legend,
This was for
readability.
parcel.
yeah, the legend wasn't on the map.
Oh, I hear you. Okay.
Stephen was here, so I wanted to make sure the legend was on the map, because
Okay.
dealing with legends. The other thing that we had sort of talked about before were any potential changes to the information summaries,
Right.
because Hillwood had suggested some changes to that. And I don't know if you folks have determined if there are going to be any changes to the informational summaries, but we certainly want to get those to Elaine so she can incorporate them into the warrant.
We went over them last week. Was it last week?
Did you have it with the draft when you were reading it? On the 20?
No, I don't think so. When would this have been coming from Hillwood? I'm not...
I gave you copies of the changes to the informational summaries probably 2 weeks ago, because I came to last week's meeting thinking we might be talking about it, but because of the short leash, we didn't.
Okay, they shortened it. It made it more
Correct.
user-friendly,
Yeah.
basically. I didn't have any issues with any of those.
I didn't have any issues with what we were reading, and whatever we were reading was the latest version as of last Tuesday.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
And,
So,
yeah, that
those shortened informational summaries are fine with you guys.
Yes,
All right.
yes. There was one that took almost a page and a half
Yeah.
of stuff away.
Yeah, and we're going to save some trees. We're going to save some,
Yeah.
some pages on the warrant. So
Yeah.
we'll incorporate those information summaries in with the stuff that I send to Elaine. So we'll shorten up the warrant a bit.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
All right. Thank you much.
Everyone?
Thank you.
Everyone fine?
Done.
Thank you.
Savory. Look at the webbing.
That's part of the Green Business Park. It's not necessarily part of Hillwood's purchase.
I thought this was Hilda's purchase.
No. This is the map from the master plan. Look at the
Yeah.
color. The dark brown is the Green Business Park. There's your map of the Green Business Park
There you go.
that you were looking for.
Well,
But you have to add in the new little piece up in the top.
well, that much I know.
On the public outreach, we've done a few other things since last week. Savory and I went to the Council on Aging for lunch today, the lunchtime crowd.
Captive audience.
An active?
Captive.
Oh, captive.
Captive, but, I mean, there were a handful of people there who were interested and asked some very good questions. Unfortunately, one of them was from Plymouth, I found out later, so,
Well,
at my table. But,
She'll come to Carver.
well, she lives down the street.
She comes to Council on Aging.
But,
and someone from at the table I was at beginning with wasn't a resident either.
wasn't a resident.
Yeah, the gentleman was not a resident. So.
And I might remind people that in order to go to town meeting, you must be a registered voter, and in order to vote at town meeting, you must be a registered voter. And the deadline for town meeting, I believe, is passed to register. I believe it was last week.
It's separate from voting?
It's separate
Yes.
from voting in the election.
Yeah.
In the election, they had another
that?
week or two, but I
Yeah.
believe to vote at town meeting, I believe that was last Friday,
Oh,
but
all right.
I'm not entirely certain. We don't have anything else planned other than the public hearings tomorrow night.
Well, that's not 100% true.
Really? I don't have anything on my calendar other than the public hearing
Well,
tomorrow night.
Yesterday, Mark Pacheco from Consensus and I met. We brought our roadshow to the elementary school. There was a staff meeting of all the teachers at the elementary school, and at the end of that meeting, Superintendent Scott Neef said, if you're a registered voter and you want to know anything about this project that's coming, Mark and Savory are in the back of the room and can talk to you about it. So basically, it was, he couldn't endorse it, obviously, but what he said, I can't sway you one way or another, he said, but I urge you to vote. So, that was good on his part. And we had about 10 teachers that stayed behind and asked a lot of good questions. We went through probably 25, 30 minutes of talking to these teachers, and I think that they, for the most part, were encouraged by what they saw and saw the merits of it. So I came out of there feeling pretty good. Mark and I are doing the same thing next Monday at the middle high school. Next Monday's a little bit more of a presentation, because yesterday we were at the end of their staff meeting. On Monday we're going to be at the beginning of their staff meeting, because at the end of their staff meeting they have to vote on some things, and once they vote they're just going to leave. So we're going to be up front a little bit more on that, and basically that's the last one that I know that is scheduled. They're trying to work something out with the Parent Teachers Organization, the PTO, but the PTO is not having another meeting till May.
Oh, wow.
So there's...
Those are Carver people.
Yes. So what Mark from Consensus is trying to do, he's got a good personal relationship with Sarah Angley, who's on the PTO, and he's trying to see if some kind of an informal coffee, get a few people at Dunkin' Donuts to talk about this. But there hasn't been any date set on that, and it's not even assured that it's going to happen. So the middle high school next Monday is the last thing on my agenda, other than tomorrow night at planning.
Have they thought about a mailing to the PTO parents?
Well, there is a mailing. We got a letter today that is going to be sent out on behalf of the Redevelopment Authority. And that's going to be sent to, I guess the best way to put it is consistent town meeting attendees.
Okay.
They always take attendance at town meeting, and the town clerk has that list. And she can cull from that the people who've been to the last 5 town meetings in a row. And those names and addresses have been put together. And there's a sort of a letter saying we're here to remind you about voting on town meeting, and that these are the attributes of this program moving forward. So that's going to be sent to those people. I'm sure that there are going to be some people that are on the PTO that are part of that. But it's not specifically to them. It's to the people who have a tendency to attend town meeting often.
So I should be getting one.
You should be.
Yeah, me too.
I should too. So.
Is there anything else?
No, that just as another aside, one of the things I'm going to talk to, I don't know if it's Sean Clancy, I'm speaking with him on Thursday night, as I said, the moderator, to just talk about making sure that we can get Stephen up to do the presentation, the short presentation, before we get into the nuts and bolts of each amendment. One of the things I'm going to ask him, and it may not be he who has control of this, it may actually be Elaine Weston. After you register, after you go into a town meeting and you put in your name, on your way walking to the auditorium, there is the table that has all of the town warrants. You know, you take your copy of that. Right. And there's also other printed matter there for you to have during the meeting. This letter that is going to be sent to the consistent town meeting attendees is also going to be printed as a handout, and we're going to see if we can put that on the table.
You want me to check with her tomorrow about that?
Yeah, I think so. And we've got a little time, but it would be nice to have that.
It'd be nice to check some things off the list.
As something that people can walk in the door with them, and when this comes up for the vote, they can just take a quick look.
And I thought you had a pretty good
chart.
The chart.
I haven't heard anything more about that. I don't know. I'm waiting for that to be vetted by Hillwood.
So tomorrow night is, what handout do you plan to give the people in the audience?
Maybe this. We probably should have some of these available, since that's what's going to be on. Well, for tomorrow night, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I have just handout slides.
Okay.
Slides on them.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, that's the handout. But Stephen is going to present it on the screen.
But the letter that you're talking about doesn't have...
That won't be available till the town meeting.
Till town meeting.
Which is okay. If the people are here, they're here because they already know about it.
Right.
And there'll be a town meeting also.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, as far as handouts, it's really only going to be the presentation materials that Stephen has done.
Say, will we have the boards available?
Yes, if I bring the right car. If I bring the car with the stuff in the back, yes, we'll have them. I can always go home and change cars if I make a mistake. But yes, I will bring that.
Anything else? Anything else from it? Now, is everyone planning on coming tomorrow night?
Yes.
Yes.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
When you walk
have a
into the
little
middle
extra time.
school, or you walk into the main area where I go voting,
It's off to the left.
it's off to the left. Oh, okay.
It's the cafeteria. The auditorium was being used
To the
for
right.
something.
If I walk in,
auditorium is to the right, cafeteria is to the left and
Okay.
down. So if you use the second entrance, it's on the left.
Is there going to be
Middle school.
somebody out there directing traffic? Because if this was Joanna Layton, I would say, where am I going? Got signs or anything like that, or somebody like, some Goodwill, like your husband, standing there directing traffic or something.
Go that way.
Yeah, that way.
Just
Go
follow,
that way, 'cause
just
it could be
follow
confusing.
somebody.
Just follow.
Just follow somebody.
Just follow somebody.
I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to have an RDA with an arrow.
Maybe a sign that says.
RDA
at
with an
least a
arrow,
sign.
tape it on the wall.
Yeah, because the logic would probably.
RDA/planning board
Yeah,
hearing.
the logic would dictate to anyone going into it that it was in the auditorium.
One of those, the boards that...
They could be
open-
going into a dance recital tomorrow night, I have no idea. what's going on.
Well, just think of one of those boards that open up with a big sign that says,
The hand. that goes-
with a hand going that way.
Savory Avenue, keep to the right.
I don't want, yeah, there you go.
All
We don't
right.
want to lose anybody.
You know what, I'll bring a couple of poster boards and. just in
Yeah,
case
I
we
don't
need
want to
it.
lose anybody, really.
Is there anything else?
I don't think so.
Stephen, anything?
Not till tomorrow.
Are you going to contact Chief Weston and see if he can,
I will. We'll talk about that afterwards.
okay,
I had some other thoughts
all right.
at the beginning. We have the minutes of our March 8th
You
meeting.
know, I didn't get to read all of it. I only like
I didn't
read
either.
a page.
I've been a
Okay.
little
Postpone
busy.
that.
We will
Yeah.
table that till our meeting, which is on April 5th, so.
Okay, yeah, okay, this is tabled. Thank
So
you.
tabled.
Yeah.
All right,
Our next meeting is April 5th.
okay.
I'll post the agenda probably by Thursday again, so if anyone has anything in particular they want.
Where's Forest Street? I don't see it on the
I
agenda.
thought she was going to bring it up.
We'll do that every other week. I think it's in the planning stages.
Let's
still.
move it along
It's
anyway.
moving along.
I spoke to Dan, it's moving along. He's got all his paperwork. He was ready, I just wrote this down, he was ready to attend the meeting April 11th, and he found out that the meetings have been canceled, and the meeting that he would have to only attend May 10th, because they
Okay.
said they had town business to attend to.
All right, and who's that with?
Planning
Planning
board,
board.
Oh, planning? Well, okay.
but he's ready.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned.